Hello, testing. Testing. Aha, we've got focus at least. Right, so this is week 2 of Beginner Painter. Few things to go on about. First of all, what I just want to say is that at any point I might need to nip off. Let's just, we'll keep the detail out of it, but I've not been too well this week. I've had to have a couple of days off work, and yeah, so at any point I may actually have to run. So if I do, I'll try and pause the video and come back, but if I don't, then sorry about that. You've been warned, so at any point I might have to nip off. I've been alright for the last couple of hours, so let's hope the next couple are just as good. So, since last week, last week we basically sat and tried painting this guy. We'll just cover over, bear with me 1 second while I get this guy. So, for those of you who aren't aware, this is one of the last things I painted sort of 16 plus years ago, when I first started painting, or when I was last painting, and this is one of the last things I kind of did. I was quite chuffed with it. I mean, I was only 15, 16 at the time, and yeah, so that's the best I could do. Hey Stephen, welcome. Yeah, here we go again, mate. So yeah, so that was the last one of the last ones I painted. There's no real highlighting. Essentially, it was just spray it black, dry brush the metal, and then paint the edges in white. Bear with me 1 second. Excuse me, doggies. Do you mind? Do you quite mind? That'll be Cloud barking. So yeah, so that was the best I could do. With the new sort of style of painting, I started doing this guy last week with some advice, and what I was doing was trying to sort of glaze a shade. So all this all these edges where the shading was on, I was trying to glaze it in. And I got a few tips, but my problem with it, let me just say, oh, that's actually got quite good focus. My problem with it is it didn't glaze quite well. So what I was doing was, if I just get my brush, in fact I'll get a different brush, this wasn't the brush I was using obviously. So the way I was glazing, sorry I'm doing that to try and get it to focus, the way I was glazing was like this. So initially I was going down the edges like that and across like this and up like that, but what I was advised to do was sort of stipple it a bit, so kind of like just do that off the edge. Now the problem I've got is, I think the point on the brush is just kind of made, you see how it's gone all blotchy, and all I've got really is lines and stuff. So that's not great. Now the back, I did start doing it that way, but the glazing, essentially, it wasn't going well for me, so I just thought, screw it, I'm going to go back to edge highlighting. Followed Garth's guide again, looking at the guide that he's done for his Death Watch, and actually more recently the, sorry, not Death Watch, the Ravenwing bike from Dark Vengeance, and more recently the Death Watch one. Is it essentially was just kind of a half glaze, so you just really watered down. So what we're going to do in a bit is we're probably going to do that. So that's Abaddon Black, Eshin Grey as the darker, Dawnstone as the lighter, and then we're going to add some Administratum Grey, just essentially like here on the corners, just to finish that highlight off. Now we're going to do that today. One of the other things I did, which you probably see here, it's not been very successful, but I'm quite chuffed with it for the first time I've ever had a go. So this essentially was just painted silver, as you can see, like the rest of it. Then I went over the back, so I did some Drakenhof Nightshade on the back. Then I did the purple one, what's that? Drushy Violet? Yep, and just sort of like, I didn't blend it in, I just basically went over the blue a bit. And then Seraphim Sepia here, so it kind of has a good feed. And then I re-dry brushed this back edge just to be silver again, so to get that silver back on there. So that's how that's done. One of the other things I've added, I've just painted that in like a brass colour, so very basic brass, nice shiny brass there. I've been doing a lot of my Dark Angels with sort of brass ornamentation, so that fits. And then just did an edge highlight here on the seat. It's corn red highlighted with Mephiston red. So, the other thing you'll notice is the guns are missing. Yep, they fell off. Not great, but the problem is what I like to do is I don't know why, I like to leave my wheels so they can spin. Kind of pointless, but I like to drive around with them like that, going brrr, even though they're not spinning now. So because of that, and I'm holding it like this, when I'm sort of concentrating and looking up close, I go whoop, and then the wheels slip, and then I drop it. So that's not great. So that's been done this week. Ow, sorry. Still in a bit of pain, like I said at the beginning of the video, not been too well this week, so yeah, if I have to nip off at any minute, sorry. So, where are we? So, other things I've done this week is this guy. Let's show it that. So, this guy wasn't even, I mean, last week this guy was, well, he was primed, but, oh, and base coated, sorry, but that's about it. So this is the guy I've done in the last week. So a few things on him. First of all, he's got magnetised arms, so that's actually quite a quick trick. You can find numerous videos online, but there's basically magnets in the arms, or in, well, his shoulders and his arms, and then you can just click it together like that. So gives him a nice sort of woodcutter vibe where you can just go chop, 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 chop. So that's quite a fun thing. So this guy, Space Wolves, mentioned this before, but I quite like darker tones and darker colours. So this guy essentially is primed in the Vallejo Air Primer, and then I made a airbrush version of Eshin Grey, which I just basically sprayed down from the top as I spun him round. I've done this with all my wolves at the moment, sprayed him from the top. So as you look underneath, you've got like black, dark shadow, and as you look from the top, grey. Not Space Wolves Grey, but my own version of Space Wolves Grey. Couple of things on him. So the Hare, my first time doing orange. I'm not too chuffed with it. My first time doing faces. So yeah, I mean that I'm quite chuffed with that as a first. I think problems are the paint went on too thick, so the highlights aren't in the right place. It looks better than I think it does. But look, I was following a guide, the same guy who does the Dark Space Wolves guide I'm following, which I can't remember the name of the blog. He's only got a couple of posts on there. One of them's how to paint faces, one of them's how to paint Dark Space Wolves. But I've linked to him on my blog anyway a couple of times. And yeah, so I've followed this, but what he tends to do is put the, not Gulliman, what is it, Bloodletter red, and he uses that for the lip and a little bit on the nose to make the nose look sort of like red, and you know, as if he's like in the frozen sort of lands, and his nose has gone red. I'm not too happy with the nose, but I am quite happy with how the bottom lips turned out. It looks quite naturally red, so that's it. Clearly overdid it on the wash, so that is Jacaro orange with Nuln Oil in it, which I'm quite happy for the colour, but not the wash. What I am chuffed with though is the leather. So I wanted a realistic looking leather. I mean, not realistic looking, but realistic coloured leather. So essentially that is well, pretty much a freshly skinned animal has just been wrapped around the handle. So sorry, the focus on this is a nightmare. So yeah, so I got oh, what was it? What's the skin colour? I forgot. Is it Rakarth Flesh? Yeah, Rakarth Flesh. The same round the edge of his sort of capey thing. So that's Rakarth Flesh, washed with Reichland Flesh Shade. Reichland Flesh Shade. Say that too many times when you're drunk. I can't even say it once sober. And then on the edge of that, I did some Caribou Crimson just to give it like a bit of a, you know, sort of blooded edge. And the same on the inside of the cape. Left the claws normal. Put a little bit of red around the edge of the claws so you can see that meaty part of the claws there. That's with Caribou Crimson. But then again, up the edge of the cape, that's also Caribou Crimson up there. So quite chuffed with how that turned out. First time doing metal. I like to put bronze on the Space Wolves as well. So I think his shoulder, his sort of knee and the head of the axe have turned out really well. I've got got a lovely shine on them, and also dry brushing. I don't really like dry brushing, just because it's something I used to use quite lazily when I was younger. It's like just dry brush everything. It gives you instant shading. So now what I've done is just painted that really watered down Rhinox hide, then some Agrax Earthshade just to give it some depth, and then I think I dry brushed, which I like dry brushing on the capes because that actually gives you texture, which I think sort of metals and materials like this are quite deserving of. So that I think was Mornfang Brown, it might have been done with. I'm not entirely sure, because I forget. What I really need to start doing is writing down my paint recipes so I remember them. So I'm going to have to practice that now 5 times. So that was my first time having a go. First time having a go at faces. So this is probably my second or third go. So this is a squad I've been working on for a while. Yeah, that's quite good. So this is a squad I've been working on for quite a while, over a year in fact. Well, I've not been painting it for a year, but it's sort of taken me on and off that amount of time. So these guys are currently getting painted up. So what I've done this week is I've done the faces, not done the eyes yet. I'm a bit nervous. So he looks kind of like he's possessed. So I need to get an eyeball in there, well, an actual iris in there. Done some edge highlighting on the weapons, same on like all the red bits. Finished the skulls, finished the metal. Started gluing them back together because I like to paint in pieces, and I've started doing some edge highlighting, but I'm quite chuffed with how the face turned out. I believe I've just followed Garthy's guide. I did, was it Bugman's Glow for the base shade, which is quite good. Bloody thing. So yeah, Bugman's Glow for the base shade, which is quite good. Then went over with Cadian Flesh Tone. Now, the way it says on Taylor Painters to do it is to do Cadian Flesh Tone first, then sort of wash in the recesses with Bugman's Glow. I've done the opposite way with just Bugman's Glow first and then Cadian Flesh Tone, then Kislev Flesh, and I don't think I went as high as white. But with this guy, I don't remember, because it was over a year ago, whether you get him with a scar on his head. In fact, it's not him, it's the other guy I've done. This guy. There. I don't know if you get him with a scar down his eye, or whether I accidentally cut him with my knife, so then just continued. But if you can see in there, he's kind of got a cool little scar on his eye. So what I did with that is once I'd finished all the skin tones, is just drop a tiny bit of Caribou Crimson in there. So yeah, so that's how I did that. And I'm really chuffed with, I think for my second and third sort of like heads, or actually painting flesh, turned out quite well. This guy was a bit of a nightmare just because he's got a hood on, so I couldn't quite get in there. But what I just said is, well, screw it, that's shadow anyway. I mean, I know it's casting shadow at the moment just with where my light is. That's a bit better. But I just thought, Christ, if I can't get the edge highlighting into those bits, forget it. The only downside I've got is when I do the eyes, I've got a new brush for the eyes, which I'll talk about in a minute. But when doing eyes, I just sort of like let the white drop in there and then throw in some Agrax Earthshade to edge it. But they all look a little bit sort of goth, like they're all into wearing eyeliner. So yeah, so we're not doing anything with them anymore today, because that's all I've really done for the past 2 evenings. So I'm going to put them away quite carefully and talk about some stuff I picked up this week. So, been quite a big week. As I'd only really got back into the hobby a couple of weeks ago, I'd kind of sort of run low on some supplies. There's some other stuff I hadn't picked up, so I sold a load of my old models that I was working on, well, over the last 15 years, and picked up some new bits. So yeah, so just talking about some of them, some new bits I picked up. So here's some modelling bits. I've not cracked these out yet, but if anybody knows them, these are essentially sanding sticks. So they're a lot bigger than I thought they'd be. I kind of thought they'd be more like an emery board that you like use for your nails, but they are massive. And I was hoping to get into like details. So when you glue in these together, for example, as you can see that line down there, On the newer one I've done, what I've actually done is put some green stuff in there and then sanded it down. So as you can see, I mean, it's still there, but it's nowhere near as noticeable. So I was hoping these would help, but that's how thick they are, and like that's how long they are. So if you kind of compare, you can't really get one in there. So I'll have a go at one anyway. I think this pack cost about £6, and there's numerous bits in there. So we'll have a go. There's different grits, so you've got everything from coarse to extra fine, and then you've got tri-grit, which I'm guessing just gets all the crap off. We'll find out as we use them. Oh, dog is a barking. Excuse me. Right, guys. No. No. Right, can we go out, please? Right, 1 second. I'm going to shut the dogs out. Go on, out. Right, that's them dealt with. Something else I got this week. So, after much recommendation, or reading a lot online, I picked myself up the Psycho by Army Painter. Now, literally, this thing is so fine, I'm convinced you could paint a cock on a gnat. It is ridiculously fine. Like, for example, if you just compare it to a Space Marine eye, let me get zoomed in, like, it's ridiculously thin. So painting that would be a doddle. I've been using it for eyes, but the downside I've found with it, and as I say, a few people recommended this, and after speaking to them online afterwards, is painting things like Space Marine eyes would be easier with this, but the problem I've got is that the paints don't seem to stay wet long enough. Now, 1, I'm using a wet palette. 2, I'm mixing in Flow Aid with pretty much every paint. I mean, the labels fell off, but that's Liquitex Flow Aid. So I'm painting things like this on, and I'm keeping everything nice and moist, but literally, I'll get paint on this, and by the time I've got it up to the model and got the nerve to sort of get in close enough, like this guy, to actually get in close enough and go, don't paint outside the lines because I've put lots of work into it. By the time I get the nerve to do that, it's dry. So I don't know what it is. I've found that with keeping, and again, this is for beginners. So what I've found with paints is what you want to do first of all is when you get paint on your brush, don't let the paint build up here, like at the base of the brush. Don't let it build up there. You want to try and keep it 2/3 to the end, no more than that. So that's one thing I've found. But this, because it's so fine, you can't keep it. It literally dries within seconds, or at least it doesn't flow well enough to come off the brush. So I found that a problem. So any tips on that would be greatly advised. Appreciated. Let's have a look at some other things I've picked up. Sorry, I need to keep drinking. As I say, quite unwell at the moment, but I figured I'd do a live stream anyway, since last week was so successful. So, a couple of things. Khan the Betrayer, the old one. Fine cast version. Now, I hope someone can clear this up for me, because I know Games Workshop have done fine cast, and I know they've done resin. And what they do in Forge World now is resin. But is the resin they do the same as fine cast? Is this fine cast, or is this different? It doesn't actually say on the box. But anyway, the reason I picked this guy up, let's flip him over, is because what I like doing is comparing where I am now to where I came from. So there's a couple of these here. I've actually probably bought 5 or 6 Khan the Betrayers over the years. So here we have my originally painted Khan the Betrayer. This is metal. So it's not great, but it's not bad. I mean, you can kind of see the green in the eyes. That's a little bit too green. I mean, I used to paint with the paints I had, but this is what I mean with all my original highlighting techniques used to be dry brush the hell out of it. So this was literally primed black and then dry brush that colour on, dry brush this colour on. The only time I've ever really tried highlighting is round the edge, where as you can see I've gone from like the old red to the new red. So I was kind of on the right track, but clearly I wasn't blending it enough. So at the time I wasn't quite happy with this technique. So that's what I painted 16 years ago. This is what I'm going to paint over the next few weeks. Now I know a new one's just been released, but the new one's plastic and 22 quid. This is resin and 11 quid. So I thought, 11 quid, I'll pick it up and I'll get that painted. And essentially what I want to do is paint this style, maybe some of my own interpretations in there, but this general style, as I have done here, and see how much I've improved between that and that. What I have noticed though is, as you can see, they've either painted on or drilled the gun barrel, and I never used to drill my gun barrels. I do now, so that's fine. So there's that guy. Let me just pop him away. The other one I just wanted to quickly show you was this. Now, this is a converted Khan the Betrayer. Now, for those of you who have been doing this a while, you might remember that conversions were a lot fucking harder back when we used to do it, mainly because everything's made out of metal. So, as you can see, I think, hang on, what goes on there? Pistol? In fact, that's somebody else's arm. So there you go. So that's metal. That's been converted on. That's been added. Or is that the original? That might be the original shoulder pad. The arm's the same, but this has been added, which requires either drilling up and pinning, but I don't want to touch it too much because I would imagine the old me probably didn't do that. The head's been added, also metal, and I think I stuck this World Eaters thing on. So, oh, and two little scabbards down there for swords with little sort of tassel things added to them. So all that needs painting. I'm not happy with the paint scheme as is, so I'm going to have to invent my own. But for those of you who have modelled for a while, this conversion isn't my own idea. This is something that I got from the old Citadel Journal, which was kind of your sort of more modelling centric publication by Games Workshop. So now I think Warhammer Visions is dead. You've only really got White Dwarf, and as much as they do the painting guides in them, you know, which are a bit bigger this week, but this month, it's kind of been a couple of page thing for the last all the weeklies. Citadel Journal was pretty much all about modelling, I think, if I remember right. And on the back it used to have conversion guides, and this guy I love, and I think it must have cost me about 30 quid for all the pieces to put this guy together. And I've got, I think it might be a double-sided Gore Child. Yep, it is. And, oh, bear with me 1 second. Right, so, brilliant. Oh no, it's there. So there we go. So that's the bit that fell off, which is, as I said, a double-sided Gore Child. You know, which that'll look cool once I get it back on there. But I'm not too great at drilling and pinning, so yeah. So that's that. That's in progress. I think what I'm going to do is probably strip the paint and then come back to them. Oh, and the backpack as well. Forgot about that. So the backpack actually is going to have a banner on it. That is pinned, so it shouldn't fall off. So yeah, so that should look cool once it's done. But just because of the old paint job and wanting to get him finished, I think what I'll do is probably strip him and then go from there. Other one I've got, not quite happy with the artwork on this one if I'm entirely honest, but hey-oh, it's a box, I ain't going to paint that. Fabius Bile, which I would imagine at some point, since they've just redone Khan the Betrayer, they're probably going to replace him as well. But I quite like this model. This model is actually, I would, if I remember rightly, the best painting I'd ever done was a Fabius Bile. And then I went to Games Workshop in Meadowhall in Sheffield, showed off a few of my minis, and I was quite happy to say people were impressed, especially with my age. I was about 13, 14. Someone stole him. And I remember back being like, you know, I was more proud of him than anything, mainly because I'm not too good with flesh tones, and well, he's essentially all flesh, so because his coat's just made out of the skin of dead enemies and things. So yeah, wasn't too chuffed about that. So I bought another one, primed in black, and then the other week when I was trying to make some money, sold it again. Don't know why. Probably because I thought, well, if I'm going to repaint him, I'd rather repaint the nice light fine cast one. So, or resin, if somebody wants to clear that up for me. I'd love to know the difference. Is there a difference now? Is fine cast resin? Is it not? Is it? I know fine cast is a type of resin, but is the current resin they use fine cast? I don't know. So that's pretty much where we're at. A couple of other things I've got my hands on this week. Spent about £30, went on eBay and bought a ton of Space Marines in various painted states. Now, I focused on Space Wolves because I'm feeling quite Space Wolfy at the moment. I'm in the mood to paint them. I'm just getting a bit sick of Dark Angels, really. I need to stop saying M so much. So there's all my Space Wolves in various states of paint. And I know they're painted. I like to buy painted things off eBay because A, they're cheaper than unpainted, but B, they're, well, sorry, that is the main reason. They're cheaper than unpainted. So buying painted minis off eBay is great because what you can do is strip the paint off them, which we're going to do now. So there's the more interesting ones, but just as a general idea, this cost about 30 quid. So there's about 5 in there, 4 in there, 10 in there, 4 in there. There are 19 in there. There's all my Space Wolves. So we're going to keep that out for doing some stuff. Got a pack of Assault Marines, or the jump pack guys. So there's 5 of them in there, I think, or I might be missing the legs for one of them. Just a bag. Now, it's normally good. Now, when you get stuff off eBay, it can be quite good, but it's also quite risky because, say, I've spent, I think, how much was it? 20, 30, 40. Probably spent £50 on eBay, let's say, for all them. So I've got 70 Marines, 50 Marines, 50 basic Marines. I bought a pack of 50. I bought 2 packs of Space Wolves, that was 10 and 9, and I bought 10 Terminators. So I think about 50, 60 quid. So that's good. That is a good price. The downside, however, the downside, however, is you can never be certain of other people's modelling techniques. So when I got these guys, they were all glued to their bases still. So here's a Terminator for. There goes a Terminator. Well, point misproven because I was trying to do that and couldn't do it. Maybe I just need to drop him a few times. So this guy's glued together quite a lot. So quite strongly glued. So when I pulled him off his base, which he was cemented to, which is the name of the glue, I lost his toe. So what I'm going to have to do is now put him so his feet are sort of like in the snow. So it's a new modelling challenge. It's a bit of a downside, but also just generally, I mean, I've tried to pull the arms off where I can, but like in this case, if you look at the foot, I've had to cut the base off, like around his foot, so that I can like shimmy that off and sand it down, because any additional pressure on this is going to break it. Sometimes I can get them in half. Sometimes when I try and get them in half, if I can find the other one of these, there he is. Sometimes when I try and get them in half, these bits snap off. So I don't know if you can see the crease there. Not great. So what we're going to do today, because I've been saving these. Oh, one of them as well. Like, somebody wanted to do a conversion. Now, if I remember right, I think the missile launcher on top of a Terminator is called like a whirlwind or something like that. If I remember right. See, things like that, that snapped off. I didn't do that, it came like that. So, I mean, nothing I can't just green stuff over. I think I've even got the top I can glue back on. But yeah, I mean, it's primed, so I believe that's going to be Chaos Black Spray based on the foot, where you can just see a slight bit in there. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? This conversion guy that I had to pull off. Or this guy who was converted. Where is it? Where's the button? There it is. Right, so I didn't realise I'd halved him. So there he is. Come on, focus. There's the guy. See all that on the top? It's because the Bright Spark who had this previously glued one of these on as like a whirlwind. So yeah, wasn't too happy with that. So I pulled it off, and I've took half the armour with him. So we need to get something on there. Probably going to buy a pack of Fenrisian wolves, or like wolves and wolf riders, because I think you get a spare wolf head, and I'll probably just like cut it in half and glue the top half of the wolf head on, which will be good. So all the arms, that's my bag of Terminators right there. Let's just sort my camera out. So what we're going to do today is show you how we can strip the paint off these guys. Now, I've gone through a lot of tests doing this, mainly because I don't want to melt the plastic. Now, before I go ahead with this, this technique is great for plastic, it's good for plastic, amazing for metal, and I've not used it with fine cast, but I'm a little bit worried it'll melt the resin. So what I've done, I've got an Abaddon the Despoiler, which I had, but it was crap and old. I actually bought a new one this week because he wasn't in good condition. The problem I've got with the new one is that, the problem I've got is I ordered the new one on either Thursday night, Friday morning, and it still hasn't arrived on Wednesday. Like, you pay for you pay for shipping on Games Workshop, which, yeah, for one model, fair enough, but you shouldn't pay for shipping on things that cost that anyway. On anything really, nowhere should charge shipping now. But what annoys me is I can buy stuff on eBay. For example, at the same time I bought these Terminators. I bought them Friday or Saturday, it might have been Saturday. Arrived Monday morning. Games Workshop bought on Thursday, Friday, still waiting for it. Got no idea what's going off with that. And I've paid for shipping, it's insane. So 30 Terminators off a guy on eBay Monday morning. Yeah, Games Workshop, a little bit upset that that's taken a week, but it's not like I haven't got plenty to do in the meantime. So we're going to strip these guys now. We're not going to strip the bases because I don't want that crap all in my liquid. So, do yourself a favour. Next time you order a takeaway of any kind, keep the containers, because they're going to come in quite useful. So there we have a container. Here we have the best stuff you can use for cleaning it, Dettol. Now, for anyone who knows Dettol, you'll know that this is not the colour of Dettol. That is essentially liquidized paint. That is, it's probably got some paint in it, but it's usable. So in the UK, in America, use either, I think it's Super Clean or Simple Green. In the UK, this is what you want, Dettol. It's not cheap, but what I used to use was, is it acetone, acetate? The stuff you use to get nail polish, like women used to get nail polish off their nails. But yeah, so that's what I used to use, and the best that does is make the paint quite sort of clammy, like sticky, but then you still have to sit there with something like a toothbrush for hours and hours. Now we're still going to have to use a toothbrush with this, but nowhere near as long. So we've got our Dettol. I have got some clean stuff in what's becoming my new studio, but for now we'll use this. So pour it in, and because I've reused it, I'm just going to pour in the stuff that's not disgusting. So as we pour it in like that, I don't know if you can see, but like the other stuff's shifting. So we don't want to start pouring that in. So we'll just get to the end. Oh, there we go. So I've just accidentally poured in the crab. I might bin that actually, and at least, in fact, yeah, I'll probably bin what's left in there and keep the clean. So here's your model. This is how you do it. Put it in. Same with all these. So we're literally just gonna fill it as well as we can. And this is going to be it for a bit, so I'm going to have to go, because one, I need feeding anyway, and I've got to eat. But, just so you can watch what we're doing, we're going to pop these in here, and then we're going to come back later. And then we're going to see how it's turned out, and then we're going to strip the paint off, and then you'll all want to do the same. So this works well if, well, a couple of ways. One, you can do what I do, buy cheap stuff on eBay. I bought this stuff on eBay just basically because I want to practice and play around. That's my main reason, but not just because it's cheap. Like it's cheap, but it's cheap. Like you've got to deal. You shouldn't have to deal with this. What you shouldn't have to deal with people's gluing. Like, you know, not that it's a bad gluing situation. Just how they've glued it isn't how you want to glue it. And if you can't get these things apart, which with these pack of space walls over here, I literally cannot prise these guys apart. So that's a problem. Like looking in the edge there, I don't know if he's green stuffed it or what. I mean, it's a good modelling job. The spray job's not really what I would be happy with, but yeah. So like it's smooth. You cannot break this off without snapping the arm. You know, I put a good couple of apples of pressure in there as well. So yeah, so this is going to be a bit of a modelling challenge because, well, I like to build them in different ways. I mean, this is built quite well. Drill your barrels. So this is built quite well, but I like to paint with the parts all separate. So I'll have the body and the legs built and probably the head on. But the backpack, the arms, well, the arms with the bolters will be separate pieces, so that I can just paint them. It lets me get to all the details on the chest and that sort of thing without having issue. I'm not sure if that is part of. I don't know if he's glued that on the front or whether that's normally part of one of the Space Marine chests. But anyway, so that's a problem I've got with this. Like that guy's got a Scout's head on. I mean, we'll get away with it because, yeah. So anyway, these guys. Oh, and also you've got like specific shoulder pads. So I may not want to paint them in those markings for this particular squad, but now I've got no choice because it's there. I'll see what I can do to get away with it. So yeah, so we're going to strip these guys anyway. We're doing those guys first. But yeah, so that's why eBay's not great. You want good models, you want stuff you'd be proud of, buy online. But I'm going to use them to practice some colour schemes on, because they're cheaper than that. I mean, you can get those three. I think it's 3 pushed together Space Marines for £6, but the detail's not there. What I like to do on eBay is I like to look around. I like to go, right, well, if it's more than £1, I'm just getting all this lot here covered in Dettol. If it's more than £1 for a Space Marine, you're probably paying too much. Now, I even got these Terminators for £1, like equivalent of £1 each. I think I paid $12.75 for 10 Terminators. So, yeah, really happy with that. I'd normally say £1 a Space Marine, probably 75p for like a Tau or an Eldar, £1.50 plus maybe for a Terminator. So yeah, but like the bike squadrons as well, you can pick these guys up. I think you can get like 3 for a tenner on eBay. So if you're just wanting to, say, practice a Space Wolves colour scheme before you commit to doing your own army, perfect, or anything for that matter. So yeah, so I'm going to leave the video here for a bit so I can get something to eat. I'll be back on in about half an hour. These will still be sat there, and yeah, we can see what happens. So I'll be back with you soon. Okay, take care, everyone.